Hello, this is the first of a series of 8 podcasts that will take you through the presentations that were given a couple of weeks ago, in which the group were working in pairs. Each pair gave a presentation about a different feature of the Nazi Party during the Bruning era from 1930 until the summer of 1932. So this first one was the presentation was given by Dan and Mary. The focus was on the murder of Horst Wessel and how you can make reference to this and use this in an essay. Okay, so briefly, first of all, the context. The murder of Horst Wessel was in February 1930, so it is about 4 months after the Wall Street crash, so it's the very early months of the Great Depression. There would have been a rising tide of unemployment, a lot of discontent in the early weeks of 1930 when the murder took place. But remember, this is actually before the Nazis have burst into the political scene. At this particular moment in time, the Nazis have still only got 12 seats in the Reichstag. The big breakthrough didn't come until later in the year, in September 1930, when the Nazis won 107 seats in the Reichstag. Okay, so what basically happened, I mean, the details, you wouldn't need to make reference to the details in an exam, but in essence, Horst Wessel was a Berlin SA leader. He had fallen in love with a German girl who had been a prostitute, and basically the pimp who she had worked for as a prostitute burst into Horst Wessel's apartment in February 1930 with a group of low-life friends who were communists. They were members of the communist movement called the Red Front, which is kind of like the paramilitary wing of the Communist Party, and murdered Horst Wessel. Okay, so it was a not a particularly pleasant event. But nevertheless, the significance is how it was used by the Nazis in propaganda, in particular Joseph Goebbels. Now, Goebbels basically a great opportunist, and that's a good word you could use when talking about this, opportunism. The Nazis were opportunists. They could see the value of, they could grab hold of events and see how you could make mileage out of it, which is exactly what happened here. Goebbels latched onto this, and he decided to basically turn Horst Wessel into the martyr, a man who had given his life for the Nazi movement, which is far from the truth as it could possibly be, but nevertheless the reality is how this was promoted. Goebbels basically found out that Horst Wessel had written a poem called Raise High the Flag, Die Fahne hoch, and basically the poem had been published in Goebbels had effectively a newspaper called Der Angriff, and Horst Wessel's poem had been published in it. So after Horst Wessel's death, Goebbels basically decided to turn the poem into the anthem of the Nazi movement. The funeral was held. Communists turned up outside the funeral. Stones were thrown, etc., etc. But again, Goebbels capitalised on the violence of the funeral to sort of depict the communists as being subhumans, as being monsters. So the whole event was utilised by Goebbels in his propaganda. Okay, so just looking at the text here, which was written by Dan and Mary, they have chosen the quote, "No, the cause of National Socialism is at stake," and how this could be used, as they have quite rightly pointed out. They've talked about people like Horst Wessel could be treated as martyrs who would do anything for the cause. So effectively, it's very typical of the way of the image of the essay, and that was a big vote winner. Okay, if we're trying to understand why Hitler became Chancellor, one of the key factors was that the Nazis came across as a party of strength and unity. The other political parties were often seen to be just all talk and no action, whereas the SA was seen to be the wing of the party that would get the job done, and in particular very, very appealing to the middle classes who were so afraid of communism. So the SA, they did not shy away from physical confrontation with the communists. So many people were attracted to the Nazis and voted for the Nazis because they believed that if Hitler became Chancellor, they would sort out the issue of communism, and the way in which Goebbels portrayed the Horst Wessel murder exemplified that. Okay, so that's what that particular event was about, and that's how you could use it in an essay. Thank you.